back, my dear students of class 10. Today we shall start with the part 2 explanation of the story All Summer in a Day by Ray Douglas Bradbury. But before watching this video, I request you all to go through the previous part 1 explanation of the story, where we have dealt with almost half of it. We have already discussed 3 major points from those part of the story. First one, we have already talked about the peculiar phenomena that occurred on the planet Venus. The natural phenomena was the occurrence or the appearance of the sun after a gap of 7 years, that too for only 1 hour. And the second important thing we came over was the very physical feature of the main protagonist of the story, Margaret. Her physical features that were being affected by lack of very sunlight. And the third important point I had asked you all to underline in the previous video, how she was being bullied by the rest of the students, especially a boy named William. And the reasons behind their hatred towards Margaret, why she was being hated and why she was the only exception and she remained apart from the rest of the students. Those important points we have already discussed in the previous video in the part 1. So I implore you all to go through that video once again and watch this video. So since this is a pretty long story, without further delay, let me start from where we had already stopped in the previous video. Let me start from page number 111, second paragraph. Get away! The boy gave her another push. What are you waiting for? Get away! Here the boy refers to the person, the main bully of the schoolroom, that is William. So William gives a push and says, what are you waiting for? Then for the first time she turned and looked at him. For the first time the girl Margaret turned and looked at him. These are written in very simple sentences you can easily understand and comprehend. And what she was waiting for was in her ears. What was she waiting for? We have already discussed she was eagerly waiting for the sun. Well, don't wait around here, cried the boy. The boy here refers to, I told you, is William, another protagonist of the story. He said, well, don't wait over here. The boy cried savagely. Savagely means in a very rude way, brutally, wildly, in a very wild tone. He was trying to bully Margaret and he said, what are you waiting for over here? You won't see anything. Her lips moved. Margaret's lips moved. Nothing, he cried. It was all joke, wasn't it? He turned to another children. William, here you will find that he is trying to mislead this girl Margaret by saying that nothing is going to happen today. In fact, the scientists had predicted that the sun would appear on the sky on the planet Venus on that day or today. But here the bully William, he is trying to misguide Margaret, and he is trying to convince Margaret that nothing is going to happen today. The sun is not going to come at all today. They all blinked at him and then understanding laughed and shook their heads. See, all the children present in the schoolroom, they caught up in the joke and they tried to mislead Margaret and they were trying to attempt to, convince Margaret that nothing was going to happen that day. Nothing. Oh, but Margaret whispered, her eyes helpless. But this is the day the scientists predict. They say they know the sun. But here we come to know that Margaret knows that this is the day, as the scientist has predicted, that the sun would come out in the clear sky. All a joke, said the boy, and seized her roughly. The boy again said that, no, this is not true. The sun is not going to come out. So they seized, means they caught her roughly. Hey everyone, let's put her in a closet. See, now the children present, the rest of the students present in the schoolroom, they have come up with an evil plan, a wicked plan to put Margaret inside a closet. Closet means a small cupboard or a locker before the teacher comes. No, no, said Margaret, falling back. Margaret vehemently tries to protest them because she does not want to miss the golden opportunity to witness the sun after so much of long gap of years. So she vehemently, strongly tries to, prevent herself from being locked in a closet. No, she said. They surged about her, that means the boys, the rest of the children, they pushed about her, caught her up and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. Here you find that the evil children present there, who did not like Margaret, who all were jealous, envious, who hated Margaret, they all closed Margaret behind the closet door. Now see, you find that Margaret could not let herself out of the closet because she is being totally slammed by the children. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it. The children from far could see a little Margaret struggling to come out of the closet, and she was banging herself against it, trying to come out because she does not want to miss the opportunity. She wants to ensure that she would also be present to see the sun, which she is desperately waiting for since years. They heard her muffled cries. Muffled cries. Here, children, you need to underline this line. They heard her muffled cries. Why her voice was muffled? Firstly, as we have already discussed, her voice was exactly like that of a ghost, very dry and very soft. And secondly, it was a muffled one, a soft one, because since he was closed and shut in a closet, her voice wasn't clear. It was vague and soft and nothing could be understood from the far. So Margaret is being closed in the closet. Then what happens next? Then smilingly, see, you can find out the children's evil behavior. They were not guilty right now. They are smiling. They turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. See, they have come with this sinister and evil idea to shut Margaret inside the closet before the teacher arrived. Then what happens next? The teacher enters the class. Ready, children? She glanced at her watch. She here refers to the teacher. Yes, said everyone. Are we all here? Asked the teacher. The rain slacked still more. Now the rain is slackening down. They crowded to the huge door. So here you will find that when the teacher asks the students, is everyone present here? They all says yes. Yeah, you will find over here that the children, they are not only jealous of Margaret, they not only did bully Margaret, but they are untruthful. They are saying, yes, everyone is present, but in fact not, because Margaret is already being shut in a closet. So you'll find that they are untruthful and they are liars. So these natures of the children present in the schoolroom is very, very important. You might be asked in the question about the nature of the other children present on the planet Venus. So here you need to write down this words and phrases. The rain stopped. Finally, the rain has stopped. It was as if in the midst of a film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, thus muffling and finally cutting off all noise, all of blast and repercussions and thunders, and then second, ripped the film from the projector and inside inserted in its place a beautiful tropical slide which did not move a tremor. So here you will find that the very natural phenomena that occurred on the planet was a continuous rain for 7 years, and after again sun would appear just for an hour. So you can just imagine if there is incessant continuous rain for years and years, days and nights, weeks and months. You can just imagine the noise that you could feel ever and ever. And right now today it felt as if all of a sudden like something has someone has stopped the volume of the sound apparatus. The sound of tornado, the sound of hurricane, the sound of volcanic eruption, all heavy pattering of the rain on the windows, the tantrums, the gush, all those heavy sounds, as if someone has reduced the volume of the sound apparatus, and all of a sudden, as if it was like another movie that was being projected, another fine, beautiful movie that was being screened right now. And that movie was not that of, heavy noise of the rain, but it seemed as if the movie that was now newly inserted was like exactly that of a beautiful tropical slide which did not move or tremor. The world ground to a standstill. Now when the rain stopped, it seemed that as if the entire Venus came to a standstill. Nothing moved. The silence was so immense and unbelievable, so unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed or you had lost your hearing altogether. See, the children had been accustomed or habituated of hearing the rain for years and years, but all of a sudden when the rain stopped, it seemed that something had been stuffed into their ears and it seemed they had lost their hearing power. The children put their hands to their ears. They stood apart. The door slid back and the smell of the silent waiting world came into them. See, here these are very important lines, right? From the silence was so immense to the world came into them, because you might be asked what happened when the rain stopped on the planet Venus. So one of the questions you might get in examination is that what happened right after the rain stopped. Here you have to mention it seemed that it affected the children. They felt as if they have lost their hearing power. The sun came out. See, the thing which they had been waiting for years finally came out. And this is the significance of the title, All Summer in a Day. Today, now the sun has come out after a gap of 7 years, that too for 1 hour. It was the color of flaming bronze and it was very large. And the sky around it was a blazing blue tile color. See the beautiful imagery created by Ray Douglas Bradbury. The sun was a flaming bronze, very large, and the sky around it was like a blue tile color. These are the beautiful images and the scenes right after the rain stops. The jungle burned with sunlight as the children released from the spell. Spell of what? The spell under the magic of rain. They rushed out yelling, shouting into the springtime, because this is the only time they are supposed to move out of the tunnel and enjoy the sunlight. Now don't go too far, called the teacher after them. The teacher is saying, make sure you do not move too far because of the continuous rain. As you all know, the entire area had been covered with dense vegetation and a dense foliage and large and huge amount of trees and forest. So here you find that teacher was pretty concerned that the students or the children, they might not get lost in the thick vegetation. So he says that make sure you don't go too far. You have only 2 hours. Earlier, the scientists, they had predicted that the sun would come for 1 hour. But here, the teacher is saying that it is quite possible that the sun might stay for 2 hours today. You wouldn't want to get caught out. So here, the teacher is concerned about the safety of the children. And she says that do not go too far and better you don't get caught out. Caught out where? Caught out again in the rain. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun on their cheeks like a warm iron. They were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. See, here the children, they are feeling the warm sensation which they had never experienced and which they do not remember ever. They are thrilled, they are exhilarated by the very experiences of the heat touching their cheeks. Much better. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? See, because in the tunnel where they used to live, they had a sun lamps inside the tunnel so as to illuminate the dark room. But now they are saying that the sun is far more better than the sun lamps that we use in the tunnel. They stopped running and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus, that grew and never stopped growing tumultuously, means uncontrollably, even as you watched it. Now they couldn't stop themselves from running in the dense thick forest on the planet Venus. It was nest of octopi. Why? Because of the heavy continuous rain, the planet has converted into a nest of octopi. Octopi, you all know, it's the plural of octopus. Just like the octopus, clustering up great arms of flesh like wheat, wavering, flowering in this brief spring. It was the color of rubber and ash. Here you will find the description of the planet Venus. It was which was the nest of octopi, which would extend their flesh just like a wavering wheat, and it was the color of rubber and ash. Why the planet Venus was the color of rubber and ash? Because there was no sunlight. As there is no sunlight, there is no point of photosynthesis. That's why the entire planet looks like an ash. There is no color on it. It's totally pale, it's totally colorless because of lack of sunlight. It was the color of stones and white cheese and ink. See, these are the beautiful words being used by the storyteller. The description of the planet Venus. See here, it was like a cheese, it was like a stone, it was like a rubber, ash. It was just like the color of the moon, having no color at all. It was totally pale. The children lay out, laughing on the jungle mattress. See the words, the jungle mattress. Why jungle mattress? Because the entire Venus had been covered by natural vegetation. That too was grey in and ash in color. And heard a sigh and squeak under the resilient and alive. The children were too much resilient and alive under the spell of the sun. They ran among the trees. They slipped and fell, they pushed each other, they played hide and seek because of immense joy and happiness and elation. And most of all, they squinted at the sun, they stared at the sun until the tear ran down their faces. See, they stared at the sun because they wanted to remember and they wanted to know exactly what sun looked like. So they stared at it until tears ran down their faces because they were so much excited. And they put their hands up to their yellowness and that amazing blueness and the breath of fresh air, and listened to the silence which suspended them in a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. Right now they could feel nothing, they could hear nothing, there is no sense of motion, nothing is moving at all, because there is a bright sun and they are just enjoying the moment. They looked at everything and savored everything. Then wildly, like animals escaped from the caves, they ran in shouting circles. They ran in the circles, moving in the jungle. They ran far an hour and did not stop running. See, they did not stop running. These lines in this paragraph of page 113, it conveys a lot of joy that the children on the planet Venus experience. Mind that, except for the little girl Margaret, who is still being closed in the closet. This is the kind of the imagery the author has particularly described, in order to describe the expression or the experience of the children on the planet Venus on the day when the sun came out. And then in the midst of their running, one of the girls wailed. So while in the process of running, one of the girls wailed. This is very, very important word. You need to underline this, wailed. So why one of the children wailed when they were running? Why the girl cried? You will get the answer. Everyone stopped. The girl standing in the open held out her hand. The girl who cried and wailed, she stood in the open, held out her hand. Oh, look, she said, trembling. They came slowly to look at her opened palm. And what was there on her open palm? So much so that she cried and wailed. In the center of it, cupped and huge, was a single raindrop. What was there? The rain had come back and they hated the rain, and the child could feel a huge giant drop in her open palm. That's why she cried. She began to cry because they hated the rain. Looking at it, they glanced quietly at the sun, particularly at this Margaret, they hated the particularly at this time, the children hated the rain and they started crying. Oh, a few cold drops fell on their noses and their cheeks and their mouth. The sun faded behind the stir of mist. Now again the rain has stopped. A wind blew cold around them. They turned and started to walk back towards the underground houses. Now they could not expose themselves. Now they are not going to let themselves again caught up in the rain. So they all returned back to their underground houses, and their hands at their sides and their smiles vanishing away. The smiles and the happiness and joy they all had earlier an hour before, they all vanished. A boom of thunder startled, and like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. Now a boom of thunderstorm startled in the sky, and they all ran and rushed towards the tunnel. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile and half a mile. That means the lightning came closer and closer. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash. Now the entire atmosphere turned into a midnight darkness. The sun has vanished. They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. They still stood in the doorway, waiting again to hear the same raining sound. The image of the sunlight now is again vanished from their appearance. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanches everywhere and forever. Again, earlier it seemed that the sound apparatus had been turned off, had been switched off, but now again it seems that the same apparatus has been again switched on, turned on, and again they could hear the same continuous noise of hurricane, tornadoes, volcanic eruption, the same gush of water. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Now the children are again having a conversation and saying that again, do we need to wait for another 7 years to witness this beautiful moment? To witness the beautiful image of the sun? Then one of them gave a cry. Margaret! What? Then in the midst of the conversation, after experiencing the sun, one of the girls, she's still in the closet. So one of the children remembers Margaret, and they remember that she is still in the closet and is being locked inside. Margaret? They stood as if someone had driven them like so many sticks into the floor. They looked at each other and they looked away. They are now having the sense of guilt. They looked at each other. They glanced out at the world, raining and raining steadily. They have now the sense of guilt. They could not meet each other glances. They all are so much guilty now, they could not look at each other. Their faces were solemn and pale. Their faces now have turned solemn, serious and pale because of the evil plan they had done with Margaret, because of this very notorious act of slamming Margaret inside the closet. They looked at their heads and their feet. They looked at their heads and their feet and their faces down. They could not meet each other's eyes and faces. Margaret, one of the girls said. Well, no one moved. Go on, whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder, lightning on their faces, blue and terrible. Now the atmosphere is exactly the same as they had 7 years back. Thunder, lightning. They walked over the closet door slowly and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margaret out. So at last the children, they feel guilty about their evil plan, about their evil act, and slowly they release Margaret from the closet, and Margaret slowly comes out of it. That's how the story ends. So this is basically the story explanation of the story All Summer in a Day. So just to recapitulate the theme of the story, we have discussed Margaret and William, the main protagonist of the story, Margaret, and how she is being bullied by another protagonist, William, on the planet Venus and Earth. Earth is a beautiful planet where we get to see the sun every day, whereas on the planet Venus, the life is totally doomed, where there is no sunlight and there is rain for continuous 7 years except for an hour in every 7 years. And rain and sunlight, how the rain, this is very important, the third point, rain versus sunlight, how the rain had affected the very mentality and behavioral pattern of the children living on the planet Venus. They had totally become inhuman. They had totally become evil. They had totally become immoral. They were jealous. They were liars. So the lack of rainfall had affected the mentality of the children living on the planet Venus. Whereas Margaret was not like that, because she had already experienced sun when she used to live at Ohio. She was different. So you can find the difference between rain, a dark world, and sunlight, a brighter world. And influence of sun, how sun had influenced Margaret, how she was different from the rest. And when sun appeared for the first time after the gap of 7 years, then the reaction, how it affected the children on the planet Venus. They all were happy, they all were sensuous, they all were joyous. Then comes positive energy. Usually the sunlight is associated with positive energy. So Margaret was filled with positive energy, whereas the children, because of lack of sunlight, they all were negative. They all lacked positive energy. And Margaret's description, this is very important. You are being frequently asked in the questions. Describe the physical appearance of Margaret, or how Margaret's appearance was influenced or affected by the lack of sunlight, how she looked because of lack of sun rays. And finally, the transformation. This is very important. What kind of transformation? Earlier, the children, they were all having a vicious character. They all had immoral character. But right now, when they felt the heat and the rays of sun on their bodies, they afterwards realized their guilt, their mistake. They could not meet up each other glances. At least towards the end, these children, their negativity had been turned into positive energy because of the sun. Why? Because they showed a sign of guilt and remorse towards the end of the story. So this is the gist of the theme of the story All Summer in a Day. So I implore you all to read the story line wise thoroughly, and not just go for the gist or the summary of the story. You need to understand it as a piece of a literature where you have to go through each and every words and phrases very carefully and try to understand and comprehend it. So children, this much for today. More shall be discussed in the later days to come. Thank you very much.